I'm Michelle MacDonald. I'm running for Minnesota Supreme Court. As Anthony explained, the Supreme Court is the highest judicial office of our state. There are 7 judges on the Supreme Court. And let me tell you that this year there are 4 judges up for, quote, re-election, and only 1 is being opposed, and that person is being opposed by me. So in a year when we have 4 openings on the Supreme Court and no attorneys running, it just clinches the fact that these are what I call false elections. There are over 90 judges running unopposed this year. We have a constitutional right to vote for judges. And it's being usurped by the governor. There was a bit of a talk earlier about how what ends up happening is most of us think that judges are appointed because they are. And the reason they're appointed is they do this little trick. See, what happens is the judges, if they retire or if they get in trouble, instead of leaving their seat open so that other attorneys can run, what they do is called vacate their seat and allow the governor to appoint a judge in that position. So like we were talking about earlier, it is political. A Democratic judge is, a Democratic governor's gonna probably appoint a liberal judge, and a Republican governor is going to probably appoint a conservative judge. That's the way it works. And let me tell you how dangerous it is. Does anybody remember when Senator Wellstone died? Well, he vacated his seat. And that's why the governor appointed. More recently with Al Franken. Al Franken got in trouble, vacated his seat, and the governor appointed. So this is happening in our 3rd branch, in our judges, and it could happen in any of our elected officials. So why do they pull this stunt with judges and only really do it with other elected officials? In other words, somebody steps down, their seat is vacated, they got in trouble publicly. Somebody dies, they vacate their seats. Another trick they pull is when you turn over the ballot, you will see incumbent on all of these judges, these 90 judges that are running unopposed. And then you'll see them on there and say, gee, who's opposing them? And what you're going to see in your statewide ballot is you're going to see, I'm opposing Margaret Chuchik, and Anthony Brown's opposing, what's her name is?
We don't say her name.
We don't say her name. Yes, the incumbent there. And these 2 have never been elected by us. So it's a trick that they pull. I ran for Minnesota Supreme Court in 2014. I was Republican endorsed that year. I was one of the first attorneys ever to run on a ticket of, I want to eliminate court for families altogether. Okay? And it's resonating now more than ever in 2018. Like I said, I'm all about God and I'm all about family. My mother taught, Anthony's mother, was from a family of 14 children. My father was from a family of 11 children. My mom and dad had 8 children, of which I am the oldest. And I have 4 children, and I'm married. And while raising a family, I practiced law for these 30 years. And I was doing business as usual until about 2007, when my eyes finally went wide open. I I had an office, a building actually, a storefront building, and who walked into my office was a gentleman by the name of Benedictus Ombuna with a family law problem. He was a black man from Kenya, Africa. And he came in and he had said, basically he was distraught because his 10-year-old son, he went to the bus stop one day and his 10-year-old son was gone. And it was a family court order. There was no abuse of any kind. And in a quiet chambers with a guardian, a lawyer, and a great aunt who did not even have standing, they got an order, and the aunt got custody. And I thought it was going to be a pretty simple case because the mom had died. So this didn't even belong in family court. He was the only surviving parent, and he had been raising his son. And I basically gave it to a junior attorney in my firm, said go down with the death certificate and get an order. And it ended up being months and even years of work. And I had a crossroads in my life because Benedictus Ombuna, he was a nurse assistant and he had no money. So I had a crossroads of either keep with it was about $1 million a year family law practice, or take the crossroads of helping somebody who didn't have any money. And I'm happy to say that I took the right road. I represented Benedictus Ombuna. Ultimately, months later, after I brought a constitutional challenge, the judge vacated his order, said that there was no jurisdiction, basically said, oopsie, but all the damage had been done. This man had not seen his child for many, many months. And then, after the judge said there was no jurisdiction, because I'm telling you, no paperwork was served or anything, there was no third-party custody action, there was nothing. It took months for the judge to figure that out. The other attorney brought a custody case, served papers, and then we were back to square one. And saying that the child had been with her for a long, long time, so the child should stay there. Back to square one. So I'm doing my thing. I'm representing him and many other people. And it's at a time, and probably by now you know I grew up Catholic, because all of those children, my younger brothers and sisters and my parents having big families. And there came a time when Pope John Paul II was being beatified. And by this time I'm going to a Christian church, and this was 2011. And he needed a second miracle. He had one miracle to be beatified, but he needed a second miracle to actually be a saint. And during this period of time, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I said, whatever I say right now is going to be that miracle. And I looked at my husband and thought about my children and said, no, I'm good there. Great family. Thought about the lottery. Wouldn't that be nice? I could do a lot of good with that money. Nope, that's too selfish. And then it just came to me. Abolish family court in 1 year. And I'm just like, I can't do that. That's my career. That's what I do for a living. And Benedictus Ombuna's case came to mind, and within a few days we were in trial. Remember I said there was a second trial? And I'm sitting with Benedictus Ombuna right outside Hennepin County Court, and I share my faith with him. And I say to him, do you know who Pope John Paul II is? And here my judgments are so great that I think he's a black man from Kenya, Africa. He probably prays to the clouds. I don't know. What Benedictus told me shocked me and really cemented what I ended up doing and will do, that miracle I told about. He said to me, and anybody who's a Catholic knows this, he said, why, yes, he goes, my mother was going to be a nun, my father was going to be a priest. Instead they married, had 18 children, and 9 of us boys in Kenya, Africa, were confirmed by Pope John Paul II when he was an archbishop there. And I just couldn't believe it. And of course I went into court and he was going through the custody factors and I got that piece on the record. And things started to happen. Within a couple of weeks, Benedictus was at my house with a number of my clients, and we were talking about how are we going to tackle this family court problem. And on March 1st, 2011, that was the first meeting, we created Family Innocence, which is a nonprofit dedicated to keeping families out of court, resolving conflicts and injustices peacefully. And in about a year, we created a process that keeps families out of court. And mostly it's an education process, because what you don't want to do is go there in the first place. You invited jurisdiction into your home. Sometimes it just comes into your home, like when CPS comes a knocking. And but that's really the goal, is don't go there in the first place. And so each first of the month since then, we've had events. So maybe there's been 90 so far, until our mission is complete, until we've eliminated courts for families altogether. That brings us fast forward to today. I am asking for your vote for Minnesota Supreme Court Justice. I have been before the Supreme Court. I've done over 70 appeals. I've researched, I've written. If I had a second life, I'd want to just be a librarian. I love the law, I love to research, and I love to that kind of work. So it's even though I'm outgoing, as you can probably tell, I just like to sit and read and write and think. And that's one of the reasons. Also, I will be in a position to judge the judges and judge the laws. Not enough people bring constitutional challenges relating to our laws. And I'm going to find a way to reform our courts so that the judges can do it. How's that sound? That the judges can look at a law and say, you know what? First step in due process, clear laws. This law reads like Shakespeare, is what I'm going to say. So there needs to be some connection to the people and the judges. First of all, we got to restore that connection if there ever was one, because there's too much static in the courtroom. The lawyers even get in the way. And people are afraid to go to court. Why are we afraid to go to court? We should be going to court saying, Your Honor, guess what happened to me? Can you please help? That's what I want to restore. When you're going to judge, it's because you've lost your liberties, and the judges are going to give them back to you. So thank you very much, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. John?
In this new program you have going, would you have a jury or common law?
In the new program I have going, we do restorative circles. It's very simple. Most of the time they call an attorney like me to talk them off the ledge because they think they have to go to court, like right away. Something urgent is going to happen. And our culture wants to fight, so they want to get attorneys. If they can afford an attorney, they'll fight. Something about our culture. So I'm trying to educate people that you don't have to not talk to somebody. It's about moving towards the conflict and having a conversation And in the circle, we do what's called restorative circle education, and it is a phenomenal speaking process, I guess talking piece, if you will, where I facilitate the communication, or one of our other circle keepers. And they actually have a communicate where they're heard and they're understood heart to heart. Not the words, but what is going on. Now, I tried this in small claims court, by the way. I probably didn't mention that I was a judge in small claims court and a family court referee for many years. It was an adjunct position, so I could do it part-time or while raising a family and practicing law. But I would have the plaintiff come and talk 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 and talk. And then I'd say to the defendant, what did you hear plaintiff say? And they'd get it in about 5 seconds. And I'd say, is that it? And the plaintiff would go, well, not exactly. Talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And I'd say, defendant, what did you just hear the plaintiff say that time? And until the defendant got it right, we would keep going back and forth like that. And then it would be the defendant's turn. And I said, it doesn't mean you agree with him, just what did you hear him say? Because people think if they say, or say, so you said that I'm a jerk, or you said that I didn't pay the money, that they're actually agreeing. So I did that dialogue process, but that's how we do it without juries. People just need to communicate more. Okay, well, thank you very much. Look forward to your vote on November 6th.